What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down why on earth tomorrow is going to be a massive day for the markets as we have PCE data coming out, and this is just another inflationary measure that's similar to CPI. I'm going to explain what this is, why this could be massive for the markets depending on what is reported, and also what the news is saying about NIO that's very big, what the options chain is showing, and what's NIO put on their Twitter page that still is very bullish news for the long-term future. Now, before I break any of this down, though, before I get into any details, I do have to mention a couple of things. As you know, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed 6 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. Once again, that's free money, and this offer ends in just 2 days. So please check it out before they run out. You could always sell these 6 free stocks for cash and buy some NIO with that money. It's free money. What are you waiting for? 2 days, it runs out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So NIO is down about 2.24% for the day, a little bit green in the after hours, which would be a good sign. I want to talk about something very important. So I did talk about in my previous videos how the SPY and the NASDAQ have these big gaps like this. And you could see that the SPY ended up actually filling the gap down to that 378 level. Now, we did appear to bounce off of it, but I'm not 100% convinced just yet. It is possible we test this range, and if it doesn't hold us, we could drop a little lower before getting that nice bounce. But as of right now, it is possible we actually already bounced off of it. I just want to be extra safe when making that claim, and that could be a good indication that we have some bullish momentum that's going to continue into tomorrow and the days after. But it's not just based off price action, it's also based off PCE reports, based off our economy, and based off the data that comes out. Because PCE is coming out. If the data is bad, I'm going to show you how that will affect the market. It will cause the market to take a hit. If the data is decent or good, the market could start to rally. So I want to talk about that in a second. When it comes to the NASDAQ, very similar setup. You can see the NASDAQ went down almost very close to that level I was talking about, the 11,000 range. It actually went a little bit higher than that. It didn't actually go that low, and it actually held up pretty all right. I mean, it was just barely in the red. So that's another indication that the NASDAQ might start to push up, and it could actually push NIO to the upside. Now, even though from a technical perspective, NIO does look a little bit bullish, it looks like it might continue to push up and go back to that 22 range. There are some things I have to talk about for the overall market that will affect us as well. So obviously, today we had Jerome Powell speaking. He did mention the fact that he vows to prevent inflation. He also said some, how should I say, kind of bearish things about how he's essentially prepared to do whatever it takes to keep inflation down, even if he has to be more hawkish. And he did say that it's going to be pretty difficult for us to see a soft landing. However, he also mentioned something that's very bullish, and I think a lot of people didn't catch this. Basically, what he said was, when it comes to supply chains, supply right now is kind of stagnant. It's not necessarily increasing, it's not necessarily decreasing super hard. It's kind of like in this stagnant phase where prices are high, but supply isn't as bad as some people may think. And going forward in the next couple of months, if a recession is announced, demand, which is super high, we have super high demand and supply is very low compared to it, but it's kind of stagnant. If we enter a recession, the demand is going to decrease, whereas supply chains could actually kind of hold up and kind of keep up a little bit better with demand. And if that's the case, it is possible for that to actually bring inflation down at a faster rate. Now, am I guaranteeing this? No, it is what Jerome Powell essentially stated. It is something to keep in our minds because that would be very good for the markets if something like that were to happen, because the Fed could actually become more dovish quicker than some people would anticipate. But right now, we don't know for sure if that's going to happen. It's not guaranteed. It's just something Powell mentioned. It's a possibility. Now, tomorrow is going to be a big day. We have the PCE report coming out, and it's very similar to inflation. You could see right here, this line right here, the gray one represents PCE, and the blue one right here represents CPI. So PCE is another inflationary measure similar to CPI, but they basically have different weights for different things. So in essence, the average of some prices is a little bit heavier for CPI than it is for other things, and particularly for PCE. If we look at an Investopedia, it states, I think somewhere here, the fact that I think gasoline and other things like that are not as heavily weighted in PCE as they are for CPI. And with that said, that's the main reason as to why PCE tends to be lower than CPI. Now, both of them have merit, both of them are used by many economists and so on and so forth, but PCE, on the other hand, still has merit based off what we're seeing. Now, something interesting is when you don't account for gas prices in this inflationary report, or if you don't account for it as heavily, we're noticing some very interesting data. So let me actually show you the data right here. I know these numbers are tiny. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you right here. And what you'll notice is back in April, all right, actually not April, March 2022, for the month of February, PCE data came out. This is another inflationary measure. It was at 5. Wait, the actual was, hold on. 5.4%. I apologize. The forecast was 5.5%. It came out a little bit lower than the forecast, right? Then the next month, April came, it came out at 5.2%. Then May came, it came out at 4.9%, very close to the forecast. Now, for June, it's coming out tomorrow. All right. And you've noticed there's a bit of a declining trend here from 5.4 to 5.2 to 4.9. The next forecast is 4.8%. So we want to see a continuation of the decline. If this declines again, that would be a good sign for the markets. And I think this person known as John the Rock Trading, he basically stated this right here. PCE is coming out tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. That is correct. And the thing about this is, if it's hot, 5.0 or higher, all right? If it's too high, the market is going to take a bit of a hit, most likely leading to some panic over the fact that one of the other inflationary measures is not cooling off the way it appeared to be. If it's too high, 5.0 or higher, the market could take a big hit. If it's at like 4.9, and I know he kind of mixed up the numbers, 4.9, then the market will probably remain red for the remainder of the day. Now, if it's around 4.8, I kind of disagree with them here. It could lead to pretty much a sideways market, maybe some red, but I would say it would be more in the sideways direction because it would meet the forecast. But if it's at 4.7, right, if it goes down a lower number, the market is probably going to rally and start pushing up. And I think there's massive truth behind this. The market wants to see, how are the Fed's policies working? Are we actually seeing some changes? Now, I think 4.8%, and the reason why I disagreed with him there, 4.8% would meet the forecast and would still show a continuation of this decline, because back in May it was 4.9%, right? We want this to go down. That would be a pretty good sign if we meet the forecast and we still show a declining trend. And the market could even bounce off 4.8%, in my opinion. So be on the lookout for these numbers. Once again, anything above 4.9 or 5% would be bad for the markets. We may see some red, and anything above 5 would be really bad. I mean, the market could actually drop even harder. But if it's 4.8%, right, the market will probably be sideways, maybe see some green. It shouldn't be too bad because we'd see a continuation of the decline. And if it's 4.7%, I know the numbers are kind of mixed up, but just hear me out. At 4.7%, the market could actually rally. So, well, let's see what the report shows. I do predict it's going to be around 4.8%. So we should see some sideways action, maybe some green followed by that. That's kind of like what I think is most likely going to happen. So, what's going to happen to NIO? One of the things I've been doing on this channel is I've been talking about the SPY and the NASDAQ and the role they play in dictating NIO. Now, I'm not going to draw this out. I mean, there's too much to draw when it comes to possibilities. If PCE comes out and it's like really, really bad, like let's say 5%, NIO is probably going to drop really, really low. It might go down to the 20 flat range, maybe even lower than that. If we get like 4.9%, it could be similar, maybe not as bad. And 4.8% could cause NIO to drop a little bit, get a nice bounce, and actually hold up pretty well. And I'm saying this not just about NIO, but the overall market, which is going to dictate NIO in a sense. And NIO could actually still kind of push up a little bit from a technical perspective, and we could still see some green if it comes out at 4.8% or lower. Now, 4.7% or even lower than that could cause NIO and the overall market to push up, and NIO might be able to break out of 22 and maybe even touch 23 for some time. So that's kind of like how I'm seeing it. It's dependent on the data, but right now the data looks a little bit more promising in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be extremely horrible like some people may think. And I think it's very possible for us to get that 4.8% forecast. It is possible because we're not accounting for gas prices, right? In this, they don't heavily weigh in PCE data. So it should come out all right. So I am more on the optimistic side. So I do expect some sideways choppy price action followed by maybe some green tomorrow. So I do think we're most likely going to see green. That's what I'm predicting. That's essentially what I'm seeing. So I wouldn't be surprised if NIO pushes above $22 and actually holds that for tomorrow. I mean, it depends on the data, so I can't promise that. It's just what I think will happen. Now, when it comes to the news, I want to talk about this right here. NIO stock, the market watch is reporting that NIO stock bounces after EV maker disputes short seller reports, saying it contained numerous errors. So obviously, many short sellers they've reported NIO. They've really said negative things about the company, but NIO mentioned the fact that a lot of the news about NIO kind of exaggerating their numbers was full of errors and fallacies. And I already addressed this, which is why I'm not going to go into too much detail about this. I stated that look, if it's true, I condemn it. If these reports that NIO exaggerates their numbers are true, but most of the data I saw was just based off speculation. It's not conclusive evidence, so I can't make any claim just yet. But as of right now, as I mentioned before, their deliveries keep going up. The company's improving fundamentally. They're going to keep growing and growing and growing. So I don't see why they would have to even exaggerate or even flip numbers when they're growing so much. You could see the deliveries. They can't fake deliveries. They're real deliveries that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. They're improving. The company is still very bullish for the long term. When it comes to the options chain, we have about 13,000 calls in the money, 64,000 out of the money. So that's an indication that we don't have too much gamma, but max pain happens to be around $22. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. That could just be an indication that NIO won't necessarily crash. At least big market makers and retail are not projecting that. And even though they're projecting it this way, I can't guarantee that because it also depends on PCE and the reports like that. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is this right here. Obviously, we have the NIO ET7 coming out. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's already out. So they're already doing deliveries for this car. And I'm just informing you that NIO keeps improving, they keep evolving, and I see massive moves for the long-term future as I am still incredibly, incredibly bullish. With that out of the way, pay attention to these key zones, all right? NIO pushes up. We have some resistance around that 22.27 range. 23.99 is another big one. And then for support, 20.86, around 20.8, 20.6, around that range is where our key support is. Be on the lookout for these ranges and be ready for tomorrow because PCE is not good and the market does end up responding negatively to it. It could bring NIO down. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be that horrible. I think it should be pretty decent. And I think it's very probable NIO holds up pretty well and maybe even pushes up a little bit because we're already green in the after hours. The setup, the technical setup looks a little bit more bullish than bearish. So I do think it's very probable NIO holds above $22 for tomorrow. But then again, depends on the data. With that said and done, thank you for listening. Be prepared for tomorrow, and I will see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon, and peace out.